December 13th, 1945. In the yard of Hamlin Prison, England. A 22-year-old woman stepped onto the place of execution. Her appearance surprised many. A bright face, cold blue eyes, a slender figure like a movie star. But as the moment of death approached, she did not tremble. Her last words, brief and chilling. "Schnell, hurry up." The sentence was carried out, closing a short life laden with guilt. Not long before, inside the concentration camp, where tens of thousands had died. Prisoners who had once cowered before her violence rose up. They dragged Grese out, humiliated her, and assaulted her. To them, it was a verdict pronounced on behalf of the tens of thousands who had died unjustly. Who was this woman? How did a girl with an ordinary childhood come to bear the notorious nickname the Hyena of Auschwitz and spread terror throughout? The concentration camps? On September 1st, 1939, Nazi Germany invaded Poland. That event ignited World War II and ushered in a dark chapter in human history. In May 1940, in an area about 60 kilometers west of Krakow, the Auschwitz concentration camp was established. Its purpose, to hold large numbers of Poles, as local prisons became overcrowded. In October 1941, the Nazis expanded the complex with Auschwitz-WW2. In the years that followed, the compound grew into a system of more than 40 camps and subcamps. From March 1942, Auschwitz-WW2 served as a center of the systematic extermination policy against Europe's Jews. About 1 million people were killed there. Nearly 90% were victims at Birkenau, primarily in facilities that historical sources refer to as gas chambers, or through forced labor, severe deprivation, and disease. Auschwitz-Birkenau quickly became a dark symbol of the Nazi apparatus of repression. It was here, from March 1943 to January 1945, that a young woman appeared in the eyes of the prisoners and later the world. She gradually became the embodiment of brutality, Irma Grese. Irmgard Ilse Ida Grese was born on October 7th, 1923 in Rieschen, then part of the Weimar Republic. She was the third of 5 children. Her parents, Alfred and Berta Grese, worked in the dairy industry. In January 1933, when Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party came to power, Irma was 9 years old. Irma was born at a time when Germany was still mired in the aftermath of the First World War. The Weimar economy was in crisis, unemployment was widespread, and social discontent was growing. In that climate of instability, Nazi youth organizations quickly drew in the younger generation. For many adolescents, they seemed a promising path to belief and a sense of belonging. Her father, Alfred, disliked the new regime. He forbade his children from joining Nazi youth organizations, even though they all wanted to. In January 1936, when Irma was 12, a serious family tragedy occurred. Her mother, Berta, died. From then on, the 5 children grew up under their father's very strict supervision. He was a practicing Catholic and enforced rigid discipline at home. Alfred Grese despised Nazism and the cult of violence it promoted, yet at home he enforced harsh discipline. That contradiction instilled in Irma a constant fear. It also left a paradox, condemning violence in society, while inadvertently reproducing severity within the family, at school. Irma struggled academically and was frequently bullied. Her sister Helene later recalled, "In arguments or scuffles, Irma never dared fight back. She would panic and run. Not once did she stand her ground." This seemingly small detail reveals a bitter paradox. The girl who had been timid, unwilling to face violence, would later be regarded as someone who spread harshness throughout the concentration camp system. In 1938, at age 14, Irma left school and worked at the Furstenberg dairy plant from spring through winter. After that, she spent 6 months at a retail shop in Lycan. These short-term jobs gave Irma neither skills nor long-term direction. From the Furstenberg dairy to the small shop in Lycan, they reflected a fragmented youth, lacking purpose and without a clear path for the future. In 1939, at 15, Irma Grese went to the Hohenleichen Sanatorium, a well-known medical institution, to train as a nurse. She worked there for about 2 years under Karl Gebhardt, the medical director at the time. He later held a senior role in the Nazi medical establishment. Grese wanted formal nurse training, but was rejected for poor academic performance. In 1941, at 17, she was assigned to a dairy farm in Furstenberg, operating a butter machine. She worked there until June 1942. In July of that same year, she was transferred to Ravensbrück, the largest women's concentration camp established by the Nazis. At Ravensbrück, Grese first had direct contact with the SS and witnessed medical experiments that gravely violated ethics, according to post-war sources, under the direction of Karl Gebhardt and his assistants Herta Oberhäuser and Fritz Fischer. Female prisoners were deliberately injured and exposed to infection. Their response to treatment with sulfanilamide was then observed. In some cases, surgical interventions and other invasive procedures were carried out. Under severely limited medical conditions. Some were even required to take part in bone grafting. Experiments at the researchers' direction. Grese is believed to have assisted in some of these operations, or at least to have stood by and witnessed them firsthand. Repeated exposure to human suffering, without any evident compassion, is said to have helped shape her ruthlessness. That assessment appears in the testimony of many witnesses and in the sources. In early 1943, Irma returned home and said she was supervising prisoners at Ravensbrück. Her father immediately became enraged. Alfred Grese beat and berated her severely and declared she was not to return home, a decision regarded as effectively disowning her. At Auschwitz-Birkenau, Irma Grese was remembered by many witnesses, first and foremost for her appearance. In her early 20s, she stood out with a well-proportioned figure, bright features, and blue eyes. A prisoner physician observed, "She was one of the most beautiful women I had ever seen." But he also emphasized, she behaved with extreme cruelty. Carola Stern-Steinhardt recalled that once. When Grese saw the two sisters hugging, she teared up and promised to let them stay together. In the end, it was a promise that went unkept. Afterward, Carola's sister was transferred to another camp. Some prisoners said Grese could at times appear friendly, as with Magda Hellinger, whom she regarded as an older sister. However, such moments were fleeting. Many witnesses still remember her as harsh and cruel. At Auschwitz-Birkenau, Grese's private life and personal relationships were also noted in survivors' recollections. Many witnesses said Grese was believed to have close ties with several SS officers, including a senior physician. Even so, these relationships were only one part of the records concerning her personal life. In her memoir, Five Chimneys, Auschwitz survivor Olga Lengyel wrote that Grese not only had relationships with Mengele and several other officers, but also used her power in the camp to satisfy her jealousy. She noted that when taking part in selections of prisoners. For the gas chambers, Grese often deliberately designated the most beautiful women, believing they were rivals to her own looks. Even so, this was only a small part of the accounts. Concerning her personal life, Nina Koleska, then just 16, said that Gracie chose her to stand guard outside the barracks. She recalled, "Grese liked me. Luckily, she didn't harm me, but I had to stand guard. Whenever she met privately with certain female prisoners, I had to warn her if other SS officers came near." According to Koleska, they were initially favored by Gracie. Later, some were treated harshly. Some were sent to facilities that some sources refer to as gas chambers. Grese was also accused of coercive acts against certain male prisoners. One witness recounted a case in which a Georgian prisoner rejected Grese's advances. In retaliation, she dragged his girlfriend into the middle of the camp, publicly humiliated her around the yard, and severely assaulted her. The man was forced to witness the scene. Grese then ordered the harshest punishment for him. She transferred his girlfriend to a special area administered by the camp, referred to in some sources as the camp brothel. When information surfaced about private contact between Gracie and a Jewish prisoner by the racial ideology of the time, Mengele is said to have severed contact with her. There were many rumors about her personal relationships. She was also said to have contracted an infectious disease. At one point, she was said to have undergone a medical procedure, according to Auschwitz physician Gisela Perl. What concerned her most was the level of discomfort of the procedure. Perhaps because of these experiences, Grese was described as particularly harsh toward pregnant women. Many witnesses testified that at times she ordered their legs to be bound. That prevented them from giving birth normally and led to serious consequences. These testimonies indicate that Irma Grese's private life was not separate from the brutality of her work. As a guard, it was not only an abuse of power for personal purposes, it was also tied to rounds of punishment. Selections and prisoner deaths. At Auschwitz-WW2, Irma Grese was given notorious nicknames, such as the Hyena of Auschwitz and the Beautiful Beast, according to prisoners' accounts. She often carried a whip braided from cellophane, clear like white glass, easy to clean. Grese described it as very light but painful when used. She would often stand at the camp gate, waiting for work details to move in and out in order to mete out punishment. Common reasons included stealing food out of hunger or causing disorder or changing positions during roll call. Masha Greenbaum recalled, "At the sight of her, we could only run. At times, Grese kicked victims to the ground and used her boots to pin them down. Besides the whip, she imposed extended punishments, standing for hours in sun or cold, arms raised with heavy objects. Those who collapsed could face further punishment or intimidation by guard dogs. On one occasion, when a group of female prisoners spilled a cart of stones on a slope, Grese ordered dogs used to subdue them. Grese also took part in selections alongside Joseph Mengele, deciding who would work and who would be sent to facilities that some historical sources refer to as gas chambers. Alice Kahana recalled, "When Grese and Mengele appeared, it was sheer terror." During inspections, female prisoners were required to undergo body searches and line up. Grese kept order with a whip when two girls jumped out a window to escape a selection. Grese fired a weapon at them. According to Safran, they were already lying motionless on the ground, according to Helene Copper. Grese also ordered prisoners taken outside the fence, staged an attempted escape, and opened fire. By some accounts, the death toll at times reached several dozen a day. Copper was in charge of counting the bodies, and together with several women, moving them onto rail cars. Amid the brutality at Auschwitz-WW2, Irma Grese still lived with unusual indulgence. From the stores of confiscated belongings in the camp, she could choose the finest clothes for herself. Greece also ordered prisoner tailors, many of them Jewish, to make her clothing to measure. As a result, every outfit fit perfectly. Among those outfits, a sky blue coat paired with a dark blue tie was Greece's favorite. Witnesses said she would stand for a long time before a mirror, fixing her hair and admiring herself like a movie star. She even boasted, "After the war, I will act in films. My name will shine on the screen. I know about life and have been through much. I believe that experience will help me become a great artist." That boast, in the midst of Auschwitz-Birkenau's suffering, reveals a frightening degree of delusion. The beautiful beast was merely a notorious nickname prisoners gave her. On January 18, 1945, as the Soviet Red Army closed in, the SS began evacuating Auschwitz-Birkenau and its satellite camps. Irma Grese and many other guards took part in the large-scale evacuations, referred to in the sources as death marches. They forced prisoners over icy roads to Ravensbrück, then on to Bergen-Belsen in March 1945. When Grese arrived, Bergen-Belsen was already in a catastrophic state. The daily ration was only thin turnip soup and a small piece of bread, nowhere near enough for tens of thousands of emaciated prisoners. Disease, especially typhus, spread rapidly. According to the records, 250 to 300 deaths could occur each day. Remains went unburied, piling up in the area. The air grew heavy and foul. Survivor Dita Kraus recalled a scene of utter desperation, as recorded in her memoir. The details are intentionally withheld in this video. In that setting, according to accounts, Greece remained extremely harsh. She forced starving, exhausted prisoners to perform drills she called sport, running, jumping, and deep knee bends. Many could barely stand. Survivor Edda Treforest recounted a haunting scene just days before the British arrived. "I saw Greece with a whip, on horseback, striking a female prisoner again and again. The level of violence, in my view, could have been fatal, even when the Nazi defeat was clear." Greece did not stop. On one occasion, catching two sisters collecting potato peels from the kitchen to eat, she assaulted them severely, forcing them to crash into each other and leaving both collapsed. Such acts steadily fueled the prisoners' anger. On April 15, 1945, the British entered and liberated Bergen-Belsen. In the chaos of that moment, acts of reprisal occurred on the spot. According to witness Edda Treforest, Greece was humiliated, an act that reflected anger pent up after many months of suffering. 2 days later, on April 17, 1945, Greece was arrested by the British along with many other SS personnel. They were compelled to take part in large-scale burial work. More than 13,000 remains in mass graves. Their rations were very limited, and they lacked protective gear, such as gloves or specialized clothing. They worked under the close supervision of armed soldiers. According to medical records from the time, within just 2 months, 17 SS personnel died of typhus. The cause was said to be direct contact, with remains under unsanitary conditions. Among them was Franz Wolfgang Hatzinger, an SS man said to be close to Grese, who died on April 23, 1945. Grese survived the outbreak. The collapse of the regime, together with personal upheaval, closed the door on the illusion of power she had once held. Though Greece survived that assignment, she could not escape final punishment. Bergen-Belsen, where she ended her career as a guard, also laid bare the total collapse of the brutal apparatus she had served. In September 1945, in the city of Lüneburg, the Belsen trial was convened to try 45 defendants, including Irma Grese. At just 22, Grese became the focal point among the female guards brought to justice. Throughout the trial, Grese repeatedly provoked outrage with her cold and mocking demeanor. On at least 2 occasions, she burst out laughing, bending over in the dock and covering her mouth to stifle it. Seated beside her, Ilse Lotti also tried to hide her laughter behind a handkerchief. One shocking moment came when the wife of Josef Kramer, former commandant of Auschwitz-WW2, said to have been close to Grese, took the stand. She broke down in tears. She said her husband often could not sleep, paced back and forth in the room, and cried, "Why? Why? Why?" Because he was haunted by the deaths in the camp's secret facilities. In the face of that pain, Grese and Loth bent down, giggling as if it were a joke. As she left the courtroom, Kramer's grieving wife was slapped by a Polish woman, herself a survivor from the camp. That moment further etched the victim's anger toward those who had sown such brutality. When witnesses described Grese as one of the most severe female guards, she pushed back, calling the testimony exaggeration, making a mountain out of a molehill. However, under the weight of the evidence, Grese ultimately conceded, "I used corporal punishment," because they did not obey. If they were slapped, it was their fault. She denied having directly caused anyone's death, but at one point also said, "I admit to using violence because it weighed on my conscience." Throughout the proceedings, Grese showed little remorse. The few tears she shed came when she heard her sister Helena speak about their childhood, and when she saw her brother Alfred, who had been wounded twice on the Eastern Front. On November 17, 1945, a British military court imposed the highest sentence permitted by law at the time on Irma Grese. After hearing the verdict, she was described as having bloodshot, sunken eyes, and being visibly tense. The confidence she had shown earlier was gone. On the morning of December 13, 1945, at Hamelin Prison, the sentence was carried out. Grese and the other defendants were taken to the place of execution under the supervision of the team led by Albert Pierrepoint. Just before the moment of execution, her final word was a single German term, schnell, meaning hurry up. Irma Grese is recorded as the youngest woman to be executed under a British court verdict in the 20th century. This event closed the chapter on one of the most reviled figures in the Nazi concentration camp system. It also marked one of the important post-war trials in Europe. This is where the story ends. Thank you for joining us in revisiting the historical record. If you found the content valuable, you can follow, so you won't miss the next analysis. See you in the next episode.